Hi, folks. It's Fridays with Sandy and John. John is getting his COVID shot. Uh, so it's Fridays with Sandy. We've got a very exciting applicant here. His name is Omar. He's from Syria, and he actually has a degree from Damascus University and currently works at Microsoft. I'm going to ask Omar to briefly introduce himself. Omar, good to see you. Take it away.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you so much. So yeah, my name is Omar. I was born and grew up in Syria. I studied computer science at Damascus University. And then I moved to Germany on a scholarship to complete my studies. So I completed my computer science studies there. And then
Where?
I got at Göttingen University.
Yeah, and you got a bachelor's and a master's there in 2013 and 2016, right?
Exactly. I did my master's part-time while working.
Part-time while working, very nice. And let's just get some facts here. You're 31, right?
Right.
You've got a 720 GMAT, and this is the hard part. You got a 3.2, and you've applied in the second round to Harvard and MIT and got dinged without an interview. So this is a fact. We've got Omar, 31 years old, works for Microsoft, and he has a 720 and a 3.2 and got dinged from Harvard and MIT. Okay, and then just tell us where you worked before Microsoft.
So I worked at two technology startups. One is called Liquid M, and the other is called Crealytics. They are both focused on digital marketing and digital advertising.
Well, I think did you explain the 3.2?
I did explain that my grades were impacted by the conversion from the Syrian system to the German grading system.
What does that mean? I mean, what was do you have some sense of what your rank was in Damascus?
In Damascus, yeah, I believe I was in top 10% of the class.
Yeah, okay.
Around
To a European
students.
and American reader, 3.2, there's great, and 3.2 doesn't read that way. So I hope you explained that you were in the top 10% of the class, but I think you said you didn't.
Unfortunately, I didn't, yeah.
Yeah, that was a major boo-boo. They're obsessed with that. You got to make that 3.2 go away if you reapply. And just some other information. Do guys from your part of Microsoft apply to business school?
I found some examples on LinkedIn, but not so many.
They're happy at Microsoft. Okay, so then tell us what your goals are. Give me a roadmap after business school.
So I believe my roadmap would be taking a product leadership role at a tech company that applies AI to healthcare or education.
Yeah, that's great, man. Business school, that's music to business school's ear, and you're the guy who could do it. You're a techie. You worked at Microsoft. The intersection of AI, tech, and healthcare. That's great. And what's next?
So my end goal is to actually start my own company as an entrepreneur in the same field of AI and healthcare.
Good. Okay. Here's Sandy's question. Always when we talk about this, name someone whose job you want in. This is important for all you folks listening. You should be able to answer this question. Name a person, or ideally 2 or 3 people, whose job you'd want in 15 years.
So I greatly admire entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. But I don't know if this answer is far-fetched.
It takes a lot of starch to say in 15 years I'd like to be Jeff Bezos. I don't know. I don't even know what Jeff Bezos does these days. What you have to do is name someone who is the CEO of a healthcare tech company. That's what you said you wanted to do, right?
Right.
You got to find those people. You got to know that, and that should be part of your application. You can't go wrong when you write a business school application, when it comes to the essay or the goals, if you've got some part of that that says, role models for me are people like 1, 2, and 3. That's the best way to describe your goals.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes it really easy to grasp.
Right. And it also proves that, you know, the job you're cooking up actually exists. Some people create goals where you go, huh? Is that really a job? Is that a company?
Yeah, yeah, great point.
Okay, so if you can explain away the 3-2, then we got a 720 GMAT. If my colleague John Byrne were here, I would say, John, would you be mean enough to tell this guy to take the GMAT again?
And the answer
How many
is
times have you taken it?
2.
All right, and so 720 is. Let me tell you, if you could get a 750, it might increase your chances. Schools are just.
Okay.
I
think
realize
that's feasible.
that's asking a lot, and it's speculative. Schools are crazy about GMATs. I hate to say it, but it's true. The difference between a 720 and a 750 is real. The difference between a 720 and a 730 is maybe not so real. Schools start perking up when they see a 750. For most people, 720 is fine. Your real problem is to explain away the 3.2. Okay, who can you get to write your recommendations, and what can they say?
So originally I asked a vice president of product at Microsoft and a director of AI research to write my recommendations.
Those are great guys. What did they say? Did you have control over those guys?
So we
control, I mean, most people, when you say, could you write me a recommendation? They go, yeah, sure. You write it and I'll sign it. I mean, was that the relationship? There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That's totally legit.
I saw the recommendation, yeah, and we collaborated.
You collaborated on it?
Yeah.
Well, then that's a good start. As I've said before to people, recommendations, the rhetoric of recommendations has to be very blunt and very loud. They basically got to say, I've worked with 50 guys like this in my 15-year career, and he's in the top 3 of those 50 guys for the following reasons. You don't have to say whether they said that. That's just some advice.
No, they did. I think we followed that style. So I think the recommendations were pretty good. I think I might be biased, but I think they were pretty good.
Good. So what's your thinking about applying a business school? When would you reapply?
I'm thinking about round 1 this year, so later this year.
You applied round 2? Like you just got dinged from Harvard and Stanford a couple of weeks
ago. And MIT.
Harvard and MIT a couple of weeks ago?
Correct.
And then you're going to apply in round 1? The question remains, what's new? One thing that'll be new is there'll be you'll be in a different competitive class of people, for sure. But that probably ain't going to change much. If anything, it could get worse due to the pandemic. What's going to be new with you?
I think my goals and roadmap, post MBA and long-term goals, would
be more clearly stated. Yeah,
much more clearly stated. I think I just talked about entrepreneurship in my application. I did not talk about short-term post MBA goals. I think that was a mistake.
Yeah. You know, business schools don't like entrepreneurship. A dirty little secret, because they say,
Really?
well, sure, they go, you know, if everybody became an entrepreneur, what would happen to us? I'm not kidding. I never say that, but tell it, it's entrepreneurship is a good thing to say at the end of the rainbow, you know. What you need is a 5-year plan to say, and then I might meet someone at my second company after my MBA and start an innovative company, blah, blah, blah. That's the way you say it. All right.
Okay, good to know.
And explain the 3-2. Do you know people at Oxford? That's the place I think you could get in.
I don't know people there, but of course I can find and reach out to people.
No, yeah. You see, Oxford, when Oxford sees someone who's from Syria, works for Microsoft, they go, man, we like this guy all over the spectrum. And I think other European schools would be easier to get into. I think you're going to have a hard time at HBS.
Any other US schools that you think?
Yeah, Kellogg is a place that really goes for a guy like you. Do you know Kellogg? Yeah.
Yeah.
So is Tuck. Do you know them?
I know the names, but I'm not very familiar with them.
I think US top 10, US News and World Report, top 10 schools. You know what I'm talking about, that list?
Yeah.
I think you should look those over. Some of those, you got a lot to like.
So like Booth, Columbia.
Yeah. Columbia would like you, man. The 720 they'd go for. Tuck would like you. They'd like and you've got this other powerful thing we haven't spoken about, which is you work with Syrian women. Is that part of your extracurriculars?
Syrian refugees, but
Syrian refugees, magic. Schools love that kind of stuff. They love Syrians, except for who are not part of the government, and they love refugees. Okay, so I would make that part of your story, in answer to an essay question, or as part of what motivates you, blah blah blah, or I build it up in your resume. That's a real positive.
What are your thoughts on
you're really
Stanford?
involved. Tell me about this organization, Jusur. How do you say it?
Yeah, Jusur. It means bridges in Arabic.
You seem to be like a big deal there, right?
I was involved. Yeah, I was involved, especially at the height of the refugee crisis in Germany, where we helped raise.
You led the organization of their 4th annual conference.
Right. We had an annual conference in Berlin, where.
That's the kind of leadership business schools really respect, man. I'm sure. Did you play that up in your applications?
Not beyond my resume.
Yeah, boy, that was a lost opportunity.
Okay.
That is the kind of you should say a formative leadership experience for me was this. And you ain't lying either, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Raised $200,000 to support 100 Syrian women to study at universities. These schools really go for that. I'm not going to belabor the point. That stuff is very powerful. Okay?
Okay, cool.
So it's possible you could, man, you've got an outside chance at Stanford if you could believe it or not, you've got an outside chance at Stanford. Explain the 3-2. 720 is good enough. If you can convince them that you are going to be an impactful actor in the Syrian diaspora, either back at Syria or with Syrians who, fled the country because of tyranny, and that you've already worked with hundreds of Syrian women, and those kind of impacts are what matter to you. If you could write an essay along those lines, you got a chance there, man. And I think if you play your story that way at other schools, I think you've got a real good chance at places like Kellogg, Columbia, top 10 US News and World Report schools.
So MIT, is that a go or a no-go?
I would try it. You got Ding there. They're I want to choose my words carefully. The story I told you will have great impact at every business school.
Okay.
If I had to list the business schools in order to which they would have impact, MIT might be in the bottom half of those schools. What I'm trying to say is they're less open to this, but they're open to it.
I see. Yeah. And they have very little to write, actually. They have only this cover letter, which is like 250 words. It's hard to say much.
I would say this.
I see.
Also, I mean, do they cut you off in that cover letter? Does the application cut you off at 250 words?
No, you submit a PDF, so it doesn't really cut you off.
Ignore the 250 words, man. Tell your story. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You got, if you choose to reapply, you got a lot going for you. I wouldn't worry about the age so much. Just lay out. If you lay out a roadmap that we just did after business school, the business school might say, "Man, I want this guy. He's interesting." Like the guy works at Microsoft. Okay, so that's great right there. And on top of that, he's exotic. So you're a Microsoft exotic. Okay.
By the way, I'm half Syrian, half Venezuelan. My mom comes from Venezuela.
Well, that's interesting. Do you have any connection with the Venezuelan communities, or?
Not just friends and my mom and my relatives there, but not beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're an interesting guy. Okay.
Thank you.
And that's the way I would do it. Okay, Omar. I think we've given you an identity and a plan here. I expect to be hearing from you in the future. Okay.
I hope so. Thanks so much, Sandy. I appreciate it.
Okay. Adios.